Welcome. If you're a woman who has a sense that there's more out there for you, you're in the right place. I'm Whitney Baker, host of the Electric Ideas podcast. Somewhere along the line of work and kids, life carried on, but I lost track of my truth. I'm on a reflective journey, and that's what this podcast is all about. Each week, I interview a woman who is lighting her own path and offering others hope. Before our conversation ends, we'll share a reflective question for you to explore. Sometimes all we need is a jolt, a fresh idea, an aha moment that connects us to a sense of possibility. This, my friends, is what I call an electric idea. Welcome back to Electric Ideas. I'm your host, Whitney Baker. Many of us moms have culturally absorbed so many notions of what it means to be a good mother. It's like we have this set of invisible rules, and usually each of us have our own little set. And these quiet and sometimes secretly punishing rules you might be carrying around are going to be called into question in today's conversation. Today, I'm connecting with author and women's leadership coach, Heather Chauvin, and we dive into how we can move past this self-sacrificing and guilt-driven motherhood experience and claim more joy in our days. A big part of our conversation is anchored to Heather's book called Dying to Be a Good Mother, where she explores how a stage 4 cancer diagnosis pushed her to take a deeper stand for change. And within her book, she also uncovers how cultural expectations were sabotaging her dreams. This is a powerful conversation. If it resonates with you, please consider sharing a link to the show with a mom friend who could use a little inspiration, a bit of an empowering boost amidst what's often a busy holiday where many of us struggle to keep our needs and desires on the calendar. Let's get into it. Hi, Heather. Welcome to the show.
Hello, Whitney. I'm so excited to be here.
I am thrilled to have you. I enjoyed your book, and something that really stood out to me was this pervasive idea that motherhood is supposed to be about suffering and chaos. So I actually want to start us out by reading a little passage from the book to anchor our audience into a different time in your life. You wrote, I felt increasingly overwhelmed by how our broader culture is positioning motherhood as a kind of torture. The message was clear. If you weren't perpetually exhausted and in need of caffeine and or wine, you must not be doing enough. If you weren't sacrificing your own needs and desires for your kids, you were failing. Being a good mother caused exhaustion, maybe even required it. Can you speak into this pervasive cultural ethos and how it really continues to cripple many moms?
Yeah. The interesting part about when I wrote the book, I think I have to back up a little bit. I became a mother when I was 19 years old. And I was actually 8 weeks before my 19th birthday. And before that, my identity, like looking back, people would have identified me as a rebel, where I always questioned things like, but why? But why? Why do I have to do that? Why? And of course, we know this culturally that if you are the questioner, you are like, okay, stop, like just do as you're told, right? But there's something primal that happens when you become a mother. However, you become a mother, there's this primal instinct of like, I can't fail at this. And so that rebel questioner part of me, I completely avoided listening to it. And I was like, do good. Now your responsibility is to not fail at this role as a mother, because it is the Achilles heel of you as a human on this earth at this time. And I felt that I swung so far, Whitney, like so fast. And I was trying to do good. So I sought support. Like at a very young age, I immediately looked up and I was looking at women and I was like, hey, show me how to be a good mother. Show me, like, what do I need to do? But the masks and the facade and the cultural conversation and expectations, there was a slow cracking of like, this is not okay. This is not going to work for me. And I could feel it internally. I think we all do, where it's like this quiet whisper of like, not this, not this, not this. And so it just kept getting louder and louder and louder and louder until I literally started my podcast 10 plus years ago. I felt like I was just screaming, is anyone else struggling or is it just me? Like, I'm going to therapy, I'm going to the pediatrician. It wasn't until I started reading books and like finding, the fringe or the other like cultural rebels, where I was like, oh my gosh, there is another way to be in the world. But when I was trying to be good, when I was trying to be quote unquote successful at mothering, it killed me. It slowly killed me until physically it almost did.
Yes, and we're going to get into all of that, but that really resonates with me. It's just kind of crazy because I'm aligned with your approach of, taking ourselves off the self-sacrifice as the only way to be good moms list. It's
Yeah.
kind of crazy that it's an act of rebellion to tend to yourself in motherhood.
Yeah, and like the tiniest things too, like, "Hey, nope, I'm not gonna do that for you. You can tie your own shoes. I'm gonna go for a walk, or I'm gonna drink a glass of water." The tiny acts of rebellion. This is not like big, big acts of rebellion are absolutely mind-blowing to me culturally, how women are shamed and judged for the tiny, tiny acts. And of course, there's bigger conversations, but the more and more I do this work and I talk to women, whether they're having these conversations in their home or having these conversations in their teams and work. Honestly, I'm like, ladies, we need to take radical responsibility for how we feel. And yes, those little acts of courage. And what I've realized over the last decade of just talking about this specifically, because my business did not start with, take care of yourself. My business started with talking about parenting. And I would hear from women all the time, so my former life as a social worker, I'd hear all the time, "I don't have time for this, Heather. My marriage is falling apart. My career sucks." Da, 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 da. And I was like, okay, but that's not the problem. Like, that's not why we're here. And then in 2013, when I had a health challenge, which we'll talk about, that's when I was like, ladies, we need to stop pretending that we are not a part of this equation in motherhood or parenting, and that our needs do matter and we do have value in this world. So it's wild to realize that considering your needs is an act of rebellion.
Yeah. Well, let's go to that time because I know we already shared that you were a young mother and it seemed like you'd gone through a lot of relatable striving, but had some more stability, had two more sons. And in 2013, you faced a stage 4 cancer diagnosis, and that was major. And I am just wondering, traversing that, what finally clicked for you to help you stop having so much self induced guilt and pressure?
Okay, so everyone asks, how do you get rid of the guilt? How do you get over the guilt? And to this day, I think what they're asking is like, how do I feel free? How do I not let this dictate and control my actions? Because I'm like, I still feel guilty all the time. I still feel fear. I still feel overwhelmed. But I ask myself, is this how I want to feel? When I had my diagnosis, it was 2013. It was a few weeks before the holidays. I talk about it in great length in the book. And the book is not about my cancer diagnosis. The book is about the journey of returning home to myself. And the reality is, when I got my diagnosis, number one, I already knew I was sick. But the creepy part, and I say creepy, is that was when I gave myself permission to stop suffering. It wasn't that it was a quote unquote wake up call, because a lot of people wait until crisis or a loss or something like this to go, oh, this is the meaning of life. The people in your life are really, really important to you. It's about relationships. I already knew all of this. The voice inside of me, the intuition, the like whisperer was, why does it have to be this way? Like I was saying that for almost a decade internally, but I was contradicting that primal fear that I had of failing as a mother. So I'm getting cultural conversations or cultural feedback that if you do this, you are bad, you have failed, you are wrong. I mean, this was 10 years ago, but I became a mother 20 years ago. So the culture has changed a lot since then. And we're now having more of these conversations. I talk a lot about the how, like actually how to change it, not just the theory of let's talk about it. But the reality was, I physically remember checking this invisible permission box. Okay, you will never get here again. The uncertainty was that I didn't know if I was going to live. And I tell people this all the time. They're like, oh, you healed yourself. Da, da, da. I was like, let's not have that conversation because I don't think people fail if they're not physically here anymore. I don't think people fight a good battle and they won the battle. Life is uncertain. It is unfair. you actually have control over nothing. You do have control over your reaction to things, but I didn't have control over my final destination. I'm sure some of the things that I did predicted a better outcome, but I just remember that feeling that I no longer wanted to feel like I was dying, that, if I considered reinvesting in my mind and my body and my soul and my bank account, and that if I actually started feeding the ambition that was inside of me, I wasn't a bad mother because of it. So because cancer taught me that, I felt like I didn't have a back door. I was like, shit, I got to figure out how to feel alive, because if I don't figure out how to actually like strategically figure out how to become more alive and energized and thriving, I'm going to die. This is a rock bottom for me. And as I started to bring myself back to life, and I created this framework called energetic time management, it was like taking the woo woo, like all the self help stuff, for like a modern day, busy, ambitious woman who has nothing, like no more energy in my cup, nothing. I was like, I got to figure this out. And the weird part, Whitney, was I felt like there is something about like leaving your tribe. Like when you get kicked out of your tribe, Seth Godin talks about it, just like the communal conversations. Like we are creatures of connection. I felt like I was being kicked out of a tribe. Nobody was kicking me out, but like internally, I was like, OMG, I'm leaving this toxic culture of motherhood, this toxic culture of womanhood, and I am a lone wolf. I am a one woman show. And I had to start finding my people that wanted to have that conversation. And that literally was my mission of like, the more alive you feel and become, that's so counterintuitive, but that's how we make more money. That's how we can attend to our children's needs. We can advocate. And now more than ever, with the external pressures and world and conversations, people are like, what do you do? And I'm like, I just think the more energy you have, that's how we're going to survive and change the actual narrative, whether it's in motherhood, work, career, economy, our children's mental health.
I'm definitely with you. And I appreciate that nuance because I think you were on a journey before your cancer diagnosis based on my read of the book. And it just kind of put an exclamation point on what you had already been experiencing. I want to contrast that with some of your clients. A lot of how you describe feeling just trapped, stuck, like you're completely abandoning yourself is pretty common for a lot of moms and my clients. If you met them and you saw them in a coffee shop, you would think nothing is going on. And that's what's scary. I remember reading your book and you talked about how one client like fantasized, and I do not mean this lightly at all, but would almost fantasize about crashing her car just because it'd give her a break, an excuse to just like stop having to have the entire weight of the world on her shoulders. I want to contrast that awareness of just how prevalent moms feeling stuck in this good mom loop is with a time when you were working with a coach and you did start making positive change. And then right away, you second guessed yourself because of a fear of judgment from mostly other peers. Like, oh my God, what are people going to think of me if I'm eating well, if I'm taking time for myself, that sort of thing.
Yeah, I think it's natural to have a fear. I see it all the time. I actually hear a lot of women tell me, I feel so good, Heather. Like they've been doing this work with me. They're like, I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. I hear that a lot. I'm waiting for the other shoe to drop. And I'm like, listen, your identity, your nervous system, whatever you want to, I mean, we can go into the science of it. I'm not a science minded person. I'm like, if you feel amazing, I'm about action and integration and giving you the real life tools. Because theory, talking about this may inspire you and you might feel hopeful. You can go down the science route. And then when you bring both together of like, what action do you need to take? What I've realized is you become like a life athlete. And you hinted around about it, but you're like, you were on this personal development journey 9 years. Motherhood was the first thing that cracked me open. And then I was on that personal and professional development journey for 9 years before my diagnosis. I feel like that was the training for the event, for the marathon. So it was like the moment of my diagnosis, I'm like, I now need to put my money where my mouth is. I need to lead, I need to become, and I need to do. When I decided to do that, that was the moment of being emotionally uncomfortable. I tell people this all the time. Just because you say you want to go swimming, okay, you put your bathing suit on, You go to the pool, but you're walking around the pool. Just because you say you want to feel amazing, alive, and energized, and you want to make more money and you want to do all the things doesn't mean you're actually doing it. So you're absorbing more information. And we're in this culture right now of information overload and lacking integration. So you're hanging out at the pool, you say you want to go swimming, you want to do the damn thing, but you haven't jumped in because you're afraid of how cold the water is going to be. Your brain is literally designed to keep you alive. It's not here to help you thrive. That's your job. It's desired to keep you comfortable and safe. Okay. Safe doesn't equal healthy. We think it does, but safe does not equal healthy. So when you intellectually understand that, you can observe how your brain is designed to keep you alive and safe, comfortable. So you're not jumping into the pool because, like, danger, danger, danger. And then you jump into the pool and you're like, oh, this is uncomfortable. It's uncomfortable. And then you acclimatize to it. So, of course, when life gets easier, when more money hits your bank account, when you stop yelling at your children, when you're like, life is good, life is good. I'm just waiting for the other shoe to drop. Your brain needs to catch up. Your identity needs to catch up. Your nervous system needs to catch up. And that's kind of like the little hermit crab who left one shell because they outgrew the shell and then going to the next shell. When you're going from one identity to the next, that's when you're the most vulnerable. So it actually feels vulnerable to feel good. And that I realized during along the journey is people are like, I want to feel good. I want to feel good. I'm like, careful what you wish for because you're going to feel really, really good. And then your brain is going to go to, I'm going to lose it all. I'm going to lose it all. Oh my God, fear of failure. I'm going to lose it all. And you have to learn to co-create with these feelings, not allowing them to drive your life. You're like, oh, I feel guilty for everything. How do I get over the guilt? I'm like, you don't just like stop feeling one day. You learn to co-create with them. So I talk a lot about how emotional intelligence is like the child you never knew you had, right? So I might wake up and go, I'm very anxious today, or I'm very overwhelmed. How am I co creating with that energy? People talk about tips and tricks like take action or resentment or fear, or it's like, why are they there? Do you ever talk to them? Do you ever like have a moment and go, hey, anxiety, why are you here? Usually, when I do this exercise with people, they'll say, I'm here to protect you. You're talking to your body. There's a whole thing I take people through. I'm here to protect you. Okay, great. Protection, brain, body, protection, comfortable, safe. What do you need from me to feel safe to leave my body? Freedom, nature, energy. Have that conversation. Our body knows. This is a courage game. It's not more information game. It's a courage game, the courage to be ourselves, the courage to say that doesn't align with me. You know, we're constantly butting up against these cultural conversations. And what I see now, because my kids are older and I kind of started this journey a lot sooner, is they're like hitting midlife and their physical bodies can't handle it anymore. Their identities can't handle it anymore. Their relationships can't handle it anymore. You no longer have the privilege to continue the way you were continuing because your whole life is saying, please stop. Please stop. And if you don't learn how to reverse engineer how you want to feel, things crash and burn. And that's scary. And I've had that multiple times, but it's just a fracture in your identity. We're all learning and growing and running from one shell to the next. And I think that is really the slow cracking that we're doing as women, especially mothers, of, yeah, the way that our mothers mothered and our grandmothers, it's no longer working. And yes, we have way more pressure and cultural expectation that they did, and things are different, but we've swung too far. And also, I'm raising three boys, and that's a whole other conversation because that has healed me on such a level of like surrendering my toxic feminine independence and realizing my invisible load as a woman raising children. There's an equal invisible load that men carry that they're not even allowed to talk about culturally.
There's a lot to go into there, and I'm going to circle back to a lot of things you mentioned. But first, because I fully agree with you that a lot of women will be listening and being like, okay, yes, I understand this. I feel this way. I want to move past that. Where do I begin? So I always like to make sure I do have something more practical. So I want to make sure we make time to talk about your energy tracker tool.
Mhm.
And for those women who are committed to moving away from self sacrifice, Can you just explain how this works? Because it's very simple, but I feel like it's something that women could literally start using today.
Yeah. So I remember when I had my diagnosis and I was like, I need to create a simple integration, practical step. And I called it energetic time management because everyone says, I need more time. I need more time. Right. And I'm like, great. How do you want to feel with your time? So I'll give you a few tips on where to get started, but I want you to think of this. If every 60 seconds of your life was valued at $1 million, would you invest it differently? 100% of people say yes, right? So if someone texts you right now and says, hey, I need to talk for 5 minutes. Most of the time you're like, yeah, no problem. I have 5 minutes. It's only 5 minutes. But if someone texted you and said, can I have $5 million? You're going to stop. You're going to think. You're going to say, why? How are you going to invest it? What are you going to do with that money? Or I don't have that money to give you. Like you're going to stop and ask these other questions. When we value time, like our one precious life, the way we value money, we're going to use it differently. And so you have to have that as the core foundation. And that's when I had nothing, like no energy, and I was literally dying. My physical body was giving up on me. I had to ask myself, how do I want to feel? And I tell the story a lot as well, where I was in the bathroom in between treatments and my physical body was like in a state of fight or flight. And I was like, I'm going to die. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. My mental energy, I talk about managing the 4 types of energy. My mental energy was telling a story over and over and over again. I'm going to die. I'm going to die. And I was like, Heather, you've done so much work. Get yourself back in the room. I'm like, okay, I'm here. I'm alive. I'm like, you're not dead yet, Heather. So I was like, okay, I'm future casting. Be present. Be where your feet are. I'm here, my physical body. I'm alive today. I'm alive in this moment. And then I asked myself, how do I want to feel? How do I want to feel? How do I want to feel? And I was like, well, I don't want to feel dead. How do I want to feel? I want to feel alive. So then I'm like, I want to feel alive. I want to feel alive. And then I was so afraid because I had no idea how to feel alive. I was like, I don't even have a connection to aliveness. I know what I want on paper, but I don't even know a version of me of that. I didn't have an identity yet in my young life of what feeling fully alive meant. I was used to trauma. I was used to feeling heavy and depleted and exhausted. That was my comfort zone. So, first, you have to get super crystal clear on how you want to feel. Nobody has ever said to me, I want to feel dead, in debt, angry, resentful. You know how you want to feel: alive, abundance, calm, ease, peace. You know what you want. So now you need to allocate your time in alignment with how you want to feel. We still need to do things we don't want to do, right? Like today, it's a back to back to back day. This is not Monday through Friday every day for me, but I'm asking myself, how do I want to feel? I can show up that way. I can embody it. I can use the words in alignment with how I want to feel. But then I can ask myself, what is not sustainable? What needs to go on my calendar? I can look at tomorrow and say, what does my mind need? What does my body need? What conversations do I need to have? How did I get here? What's working? What's not working? So, a lot of the work that I do with people, like, yes, there's additional process, but the first thing I do is ask them, like, so write this down. What's working? What's not working? Wouldn't it be nice if? And when I ask, wouldn't it be nice if, that is like, wouldn't it be nice if I could have a week off? Wouldn't it be nice if somebody could bring me a glass of water? Wouldn't it be nice if, the boys listened? Wouldn't it be nice if, like, whatever's inside of you that's craving your attention? It doesn't mean that all of those things need to come true and you need to work towards them, but ask yourself, what's the feeling that you're actually after? So everything I do, I'm not so hooked on the goal. I'm hooked on the feeling. So if I have a money goal, I ask myself, how do I want to feel while I'm achieving that money goal? And sometimes it's the mental game I need to play, the emotional game. And so I learned to manage those 4 types of energy, which is more like advanced skill. But I put these things on the calendar. What do I need to feel alive? And you're observing where energy is being leaked instead of going, I'm resentful. It's somebody else's problem. I have pain, therefore I need to go get something to fix it. Life is showing you where you need to pay attention. We just haven't been taught these skills because we haven't had to. I mean, we don't technically learn how to be intentional with reverse engineering how we want to feel in our life until we're just like, not this, not this, not this.
Hi, it's Whitney hopping in this episode. If you've been feeling stretched thin as a mom, giving to everyone else while your own spark fades, I want to tell you about something new. It's called Back to Bright. It's a personalized 4-week coaching experience for moms who are ready to move from scattered to steady right in the middle of the messy holiday season. You heard me right. Sometimes when we feel the busiest, it's an invitation to slow down the most. I'll work with you to realign your rhythms, eliminate energy leaks, and create everyday anchors that help you feel alive so that you can contribute to your family and your passions from a place of overflow instead of depletion. I don't want you to feel like you're just getting through the days. I want you to feel lit up and alive like you're actually living in your days. I've lovingly carved out time from November through January for a handful of clients that are ready to change their relationship with their everyday. Spaces are limited because I am very careful about my own capacity in the holidays and want to make sure I can show up 100% ready to support the women who are ready to raise their hand. You can find a link in the show notes for more information. If you have any issues or questions there, you're always welcome to connect with me on Instagram at @WhitneyWoman and drop me a direct message there. Okay, back to the show. So if a woman was to try this today and she had this wouldn't it be nice list and she wanted to take it from pie in the sky to actually tending to herself and giving herself some attention, knowing that she's not going to necessarily, immediately get everything into action from that list, what would she do with that list?
So I ask, what are some actions that are in alignment with the feeling that you crave? And it could be subtle things like I'm taking Friday off, I'm blocking the calendar. It could be I'm ordering takeout. I'm asking the kids to do the dishes. I am going to put my phone away or my computer at a certain time. They're boundaries. That's what it
Yeah.
is. It's boundaries. Now, here's the thing. When you implement a boundary, you are going to feel the opposite of how you want to feel because let's just say your cup is full of coffee and you want a glass of water. In order to get rid of what's in the cup, you have to like 10x pour in what you want to experience. So when I started this journey, I didn't want to feel guilty. I wanted to feel alive. I remember one of the action steps that I physically put on my calendar was to go to a coffee shop and just journal for a little bit. And I think I was breastfeeding one of my kids at the time. And, Instagram wasn't what it is now. And I was sitting there and I felt the complete opposite of alive and energized. Sat there and I cried. I cried and I felt so guilty for leaving my house. And I was incredibly embarrassed because people that were walking into the cafe, I knew a lot of them. And I was like, oh my gosh, I feel the opposite of how I want to feel. But what I didn't realize was there was so much guilt inside of me that in order for me to create space for what I wanted, I had to keep investing more of how I wanted to feel. And eventually the guilt felt lighter and lighter and lighter until it was manageable and it didn't control me anymore. So I had to keep doing the damn thing that I didn't want to do. And I was so determined to feel a certain way. So I call it being the buffalo. Like I kept running towards what I didn't feel good doing so that it could crack. And so now I still do the same thing. If I have resistance around an action, I actually make it a 10-minute action instead of an hour long. And I don't even care about the action I'm taking. It's more of the repetition. Because if I'm having a challenge, like I'll tell myself I don't like going to the gym and I'll go with a personal trainer. But I was like, you know what, Heather, just get to the gym and do the reps, even if you are doing it with a 2-pound weight and you can do it with a 20-pound weight. It's more about going through the motion than the actual weight itself, because I'm becoming the type of person that goes to the gym. I'm becoming the type of person that can hold that emotional boundary with somebody. And I watch it with my kids. I watch it with my husband, with my team. I have this standard now where I'm like, I'm not going to repeat myself. And they know that I'm not going to repeat myself. So we teach the world how to treat us, but the challenge is we're creating this intimacy and this connection with ourselves. And so oftentimes it's reflected back to us in other people. How do I get my kids to listen to me? How do I stop yelling? How do I make more money? How do I, the government, my team, it's like everyone else is reflecting it back. And I come back and I'm like, what's the work I need to do that I don't want to do? So when it comes back to energetic time management, these tiny little baby action steps. How do you want to feel? Break it down into tiny tasks and put the damn thing on the calendar. Allocate physical time to it. So if you know you need to drink water and you know you won't do it, is that going to happen at 9 a.m.? Is it going to happen at noon? I physically put 15-minute increments on my calendar to eat or drink the water. People thought I was crazy. And I was like, my brain won't remember because it's trying to keep me safe. So I physically put that time on the calendar. And then when people say, Heather, I don't have time to get everything done and do that, I'm like, I get it. And that's the whole point. You're supposed to see how unsustainable you're living. It's not about doing less. Put more of how you want to feel on the physical calendar. Circle that one thing you know you need to do that will be the needle mover. And then slowly, the shit that you're doing for everybody else, you say, I just don't have the capacity for it. It's like putting more vegetables on your plate. The other stuff slowly makes it off the plate.
Yeah, I deeply appreciate that explanation. I mean, I do similar work with my clients, and I feel like first of all, when they get really clear on how they want to feel, it's also easier to use it as a filter to their hell yeses or no. It's like women are getting invitations or demands all the time, and it's easier to have that as a filter. But secondly, I'm all about that in my own life too. I put stuff on my calendar because if you're saying you want to fill in the blank, and then you actually put things on the calendar that contribute to that, you look and you realize that's what I have capacity for right now if I really want to show up for those things. So
Yeah.
something else needs to go. Otherwise, I'm going to be stuck in this loop of not showing up for myself. So I really appreciate that.
The interesting part about this conversation, too, is something that I've been doing a lot with my clients, whether they're coming to me for personal or professional. This works in your career as well, whether you're in corporate, self employed, in transition, any work that you do. What I realized, I'm like, what's the end game here? Right? Wouldn't it be nice if, what's the end game? How do you want to feel doing it? 80% of what is actually on your to do list is busy work to avoid doing anything that requires resistance. And what I mean by that is when I'm looking at somebody and I'm like, where are you investing your time? What I'm noticing is they're doing things because they're like, well, someone else told me to do that. Or I don't want to have that conversation because it induces shame or guilt. So I'm like, we're actually avoiding feeling certain things, but we want the freedom. And the only way is through. So once you understand this game, you buy back so much time and energy and you simplify your life. But the challenge is when you have a belief that life needs to be hard. I had this conversation with somebody in email, a man. I don't know why he's on my newsletter, but he is. But, anyways, he hit reply and said, I don't agree with you, something about doing hard things. And I said, listen, I think we're addicted to hard. This common saying of we can do hard things. I said, hard almost killed me. I don't believe it's hard to send an email. I don't believe it's hard to have a conversation. I believe it's emotionally uncomfortable. So if I get super crystal clear on the actual true block, it's emotionally uncomfortable. So now I go and I go, this can be easy. Let it be easy. I'm softening into the ease of it. And I understand that what I'm actually co creating with is resistance. And on the other side of that resistance is the freedom that I crave. And so I sit in my emotional discomfort But if I'm always looking for hard, my brain will actually try to overcomplicate everything. And if you go into it, it is beautiful. So people will say, but death, that's hard. And I go, is it? Or is it emotionally painful? If you actually go into something, it can crack you. If you avoid it and you're not even sitting in the emotion because you want to feel joy, but you are not ready to feel your fear. You want to feel abundance, but you are not ready to feel your lack and to look at it. You will never achieve your actual desired outcome because you're not here for the physical goal. You're here for the emotion and the feeling that you think it's going to give you. So when you can have that as your North Star, your life becomes so much richer. And if you use your asset of time to align with that, this is when your time is complete. You're like, I lived a really, really good quality of life. And I'm very proud of how I showed up.
I know we're heading up against time. You talk about not using the word hard, but emotionally challenging. One other part of your book that we haven't touched on at all is almost this accountability that moms could have on how changing their emotional state can really change the way we parent. You talk a lot about how problem child, that's not a word I love, but we all get what that means. And you say a lot of your clients come to you and they're kind of blaming all of the woes of their existence on a quote problem child. I'm wondering what advice you have for moms who are dealing with a tricky parenting situation on staying connected to both themselves and really deeply connecting to this child who they consider as stirring the pot, if you will.
Yeah, we always have one, and it's that child. I believe, my belief is that it's that child that's just mirroring back parts of yourself that you haven't yet looked at. It's not about all about you. It truly is about this child that is experiencing a challenge in the world, and you have to learn to co create what is mine to own. The child's triggering something in you. Your trigger is yours to own and to process, but also they're showing you something. The interesting part about parenting in general, and I've heard people say this, is like, I just want to keep working on myself so that when I become a parent, and I was like, perfection does not exist in relationship. It is sticky, it is messy. And the quote unquote problem or challenge that your child is experiencing, they're triggering you, they're triggering something inside of you. My oldest son is so much like me, but every stage and phase that he has gone through has forced me to look at a part of myself that I honestly, because I was so young, personally didn't even develop yet. Or it was a skill that I needed to acquire and learn, or it was something that I needed more courage. And so now I understand, if he's going through a life transition, he's like, Mom, I'm terrified. If I don't know how to manage my own fear, I'm going to be terrified with him, right? If I know how to manage my fear and to hold my fear, then I can hold my own fear while holding space for him at the same time. And what I've realized and seen over the years is, this cultural conversation and myth that when our children get to a certain age, it gets easier. Maybe in physical form, it might get a little easier. You're like, okay, I can sleep better at night. Maybe, maybe not. But yes, they require a different version of you. And, my kids now require me to be more of a leader and a guide for them, not somebody who's, getting them dressed in the morning. And so I'm not so much a doer for them anymore. I'm a leader and I'm a guide, and they return to me for guidance and wisdom and support. And in order to become that, I need to do that work versus, not being able to go to your parents for life guidance because you've matured. You're more emotionally intelligent than they are. And so we all feel that way, most likely, especially generation. Well, not necessarily generationally, but I think it's a person, it's a type of person. I can't go to my parents for life guidance and wisdom because I've outgrown that relationship with them where, they're not ahead of me in that game. I'm ahead of them now. And so it's like, if we're willing to do this work, the more alive we become, the more we thrive, we are that keystone for our children. They can always return home to us. And I think that's what we truly want. So whatever your why is, I am not motivated to just win myself. I am truly motivated by making a bigger impact in the world. I had a conversation with a friend this morning and she's like, I could never listen to your podcast when I first, discovered who you were because it triggered me so bad because you forced me to look in the mirror. And she goes, it was true. It was true. And she goes, now I love talking to you because like you call me up and into my shit. And I go, yeah, but I am okay being disliked to save a woman because I believe that if we are alive and energized and thriving as women, we are supporting our children. And I'm in it for the kids. And I truly secretly believe that, the quote unquote problem child that is triggering you is trying to get your attention to return you home to yourself so you can become the adult that they need to walk them along this path in this life. And I believe my clients' children send them to me. And every time I say that to somebody, they say, yeah, I can see that. Because parenting in general, regardless of your gender or the roles you play, personally or professionally, being responsible for another human is a privilege. And it's like the endurance race and personal development on steroids that you did not know you signed up for, but you were chosen. You were chosen. And so when I get out of my way of like, poor me, this is hard, I'm like, okay, something bigger or life or something is this child depends on me. I can't act like a victim anymore. I have to attend to this calling and show up. And it's okay if it's really uncomfortable for you.
It's beautiful, Heather. Thank you for sharing that. We're coming up on time. I'm just wondering if there was one takeaway you hope any mom who reads your book takes with them into their life and into their days. What would it be?
A lot of people tell me they feel hope. And I think if you can get to an emotional state of hope and possibility, something opens for you. So that's it, is that you're not alone and there is another way.
I always end my episodes with an opportunity for reflection. So, in this area of letting joy instead of guilt drive your motherhood and life experience, what's one question women could be asking themselves more?
How would you parent or live if you didn't care what other people thought?
Yeah.
Reflecting on how you would parent, live, work, play if you didn't care what other people thought.
Beautiful. Thank you so much. This has been great. I know that people will want to follow you and read your book and learn more about your other work and your show. So, could you share where the best place to connect with you is, please?
Yes. So the podcast, Emotionally Uncomfortable, the book is called Dying to Be a Good Mother. You can get it anywhere books are sold online or my website, Heather Chauvin, CHAUVIN.com. I also have like diving more into the energetic time management process that I talked about. It's a free resource on my website. You can get it at Heather Chauvin, CHAUVIN.com as well. So yeah.
Incredible. Thank you so much, Heather. I'm so glad you joined me today. If you're looking for more, feel free to connect with me on Instagram at @WhitneyWoman. And if you enjoyed the show, I invite you to support me by leaving a review or sharing it with a friend. Hope you have an inspired day.